Well, hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us in this session. As part of the festival. I'm very pleased to welcome you to our session, and let me begin by sharing my screen. We have a topic today that we're going to discuss about the digital banking revolution. Are you a leader or a follower? Let me share the screen. Okay, let me begin by introducing ourselves. My name is Greg McCrenna. I'm a senior manager with MuleSoft, and I've been in the integration space for around about 20 years, in and around the integration space for about 20 years. Since joining MuleSoft about 4 years ago, I've brought insights to our customers and prospects about their technical challenges, and insight into how they can improve and move forward. I'm based out of Singapore, and I'm joined today by Dan Owen. Dan, also, in addition to representing the office of the CTO, Dan leads the JPAC Customer Success Architecture team, working with our strategic customers to realise their API-led connectivity vision. He has a history in data and integration architecture and worked as an enterprise architecture in the FSI industry. In addition, he's worked across numerous industries such as media, service, and public sector. Dan has a passion for architecture and technology and working with business stakeholders to enable business outcomes through technology. He holds a PhD as well. It's impressive for us, Dan, to have you with us. He holds a PhD that built fault tolerance into real-time networks at BAE Systems, working on the initial Airbus A380 design. So welcome, Dan, and thank you for joining me here.
Thank you, Greg.
Where we wanted to start today is to say, I'm sure that you are seeing lots and lots of presentations where we can't avoid talking about one of the biggest topics of the day, which is what's happening after the pandemic. But before the pandemic came and disrupted so much of our lives, there was disruption already going on in the worldwide banking industry. And that disruption it has only been accelerated by what's happened through the events of the last 6, 8, 9 months. The big challenge that you have for all of in the banking industry and what was already occurring were basically 3 big trends, and those 3 trends came down to things like the fact that your customers and your customers' expectations are changing. Those customer expectations now are always expecting to go digital first. They're expecting to be able to do and interact with their bank in a way that they've never interacted before, but in a much more connected manner. They also, you also have in the banking industry a massive influx of competitors and new entrants to the space. Nothing more clearer than what's coming with the new digital banking licenses for Singapore. That means that the investment in fintech, the investment in the way that we change how we interact with our banking services and the financial services industry has a massive impact upon the traditional players and the new entrants who are coming into the market. And then, of course, what we have is this embracing of new technology, but coming along with that is the need for regulation to follow. And the regulations are changing at a pace that they've never changed before. So not only do you have new customer expectations, not only do you have new competitors in the market, but you also have regulations coming in there and changing at a speed that has never happened before. But this ongoing transformation is not the only reason that the digital banking licenses here in Singapore have been so sought after. And I'd ask Dan to chime in here and say, what are some of the other factors that have come into play to make them so highly sought after?
Exactly, Greg, as I'll go into. There's demand both from our customers for these licenses. So in June 2019, the Singaporean Monetary Authority announced obviously the digital banking framework, which aims to enable the non-bank players with strong value propositions and innovative digital models to offer digital banking services, whether it be digital full banks providing a wide range of financial services and indeed taking deposits, or it be the digital wholesale banks who will focus on serving small and medium enterprises and other non-retail segments. So this has created significant opportunities for new entrants into the banking sector to complement any existing banks in Singapore, obviously regulated by MAS. Even though the licenses have now been announced, it isn't hard to understand why the licenses have been so highly sought after. First of all, is that Singapore has worked hard to become the Asian region's largest center for foreign exchange and commodity trading, as well as a growing wealth management hub. Other than Tokyo, it is one of the main centers for fixed income trading in Asia. And from this history of excellence in the Singapore banking sector, Singapore has a proven stability to innovate and embrace open banking and can be that leading example across Asia. Key to these digital license grants was to include in the banking sector non-bank players with strong value propositions. And this is really the crux of it. Today, customers are used to the digital banking services they receive from their existing banks. But open banking is about creating new value propositions, new experiences that tie banking services together with other services for new value chains. Innovation in this space will drive new solutions we cannot imagine today, but in years to come, we will become familiar and dependent on these services. And much like we now expect businesses, for example, to overlay maps with their opening times, our expectations of maps is far different today than it was in past times. And so too will our experience be of banking services in our digital experiences. And of course, through 2020, we have seen a rapid progress in digital transformation as all businesses across all industries have sought to engage with their customers on digital channels. For example, I can now actually deposit a physical check digitally by scanning it with my mobile banking application. Education globally has embraced digital media. Workforces have embraced web conferencing technologies. And of course, customers have turned to e-commerce in significant proportions. A customer I work closely with has seen e-commerce grow from just 3% of revenue to over 33% of revenue in the first half of this year. We can all agree digital engagement is for the majority of all of us. However, even though Singapore has become this financial hub, there is a large population of largely underbanked individuals and small to medium enterprises. And we can back this up with some numbers. 4 in 10 Singaporean adults are underbanked. Now, we need to be specific when we think of who these underserved segments in the economy actually represent. Greg, can you take us through that, please?
Yeah, and look, I think everything that you're talking about, and particularly anybody who's had to deal here in Singapore, if you've had to deal with your with the people who are looking after your HDB or the condo, and you have to have checks, bank checks, and all of these sorts of things, being able to do all of this digitally is really, really important. And they represent one of the groups who would really benefit from this digital transformation that's going on. But I think the big topic that comes out of this is that it does come down to who really is the target customer for these digital first banks or these digital only banks. And that target customer, whether you consider it to be young adults, whether you consider it to be underbanked SMEs, the reality is that cohort, that group of people is getting younger. And that in itself creates one of the biggest challenges to how you build and what you build when it comes to the kind of digital banking experience that you're trying to create. Why that is such a challenge is because you can think of the applications that that cohort or that group of people are using on a day-to-day basis, and the psychology that is embedded into those applications. I've said many, many times over the past 12 months, I think, particularly when it's come to this topic, that the biggest challenge that we have is that the people who are really defining what our digital or our online experience is going to be is no longer the traditional service providers. It's no longer the banks. It's no longer the big retailers. It's actually entertainment platforms, and it's actually the platforms that are providing the aggregation of entertainment and service in one place. And so that means, what are you going to actually produce when you want to participate in that world or provide banking services to that world? How do you actually bring value to them that represents something that they're going to want to use? And Dan, on that point, perhaps there are some you have something that you can share. Sure,
and I think the point you're making is we need to open up, and it's not that banks are going to serve this. We actually need to not even compete with other people; it's to come together. And the key to this is finding the correct business strategy, and it's going to be a combination of understanding who the customer really is and what the value is that you're going to be able to create and deliver for those customers. And in an ever-increasing digital world, that means a connected customer journey. And I just want to talk about what a connected customer journey means. The absolute foundation is it's about knowing the customer and, crucially, their digital footprint. It's having that input of data of knowing what your customers are doing and being able to build that digital picture of them. And of course, we often call that the customer 360 view. But what underpins that is creating those connected experiences with insight that is relevant for the individual customer. It's all well and good collecting the data, but if you don't use that in a meaningful way and provide back useful insight to that customer, they may think again about their consent to share their data, or will move away from that service. And crucial to this, and I see this in my own life, it's about providing that hyper-personalization to each and every customer. I personally have this experience today when I interact with my Google provided services. I choose to opt in of sharing my data and for sharing my activity on their platform. And being it a free platform, I share that data, but in return, I receive a truly hyper-personalized experience, be it of news, social, or other relevant content. They even remind me of my anniversary, which is great. If we get this experience from a free service, what are our expectations from a service we pay for, or has embedded fees?
Yeah, but I think
also,
yeah,
sure, go.
No, I was going to say, and I think that's absolutely right, that in a free service, you offer certain kinds of detail. In a paid service, or in a service where you're talking about banking information, it comes back to what represents value when it's something that perhaps needs to be kept relatively secure, or needs to be kept secure but relatively private, and into that space.
That's true, and to that example, if we think about traditional loyalty programs, obviously we're not traveling too much at the moment, so we're not interacting with our travel loyalty programs. But this could be extended to banking. So being a customer of, say, DBS, they may, as a loyalty program, give me access to either a premium service or to remove the ads in a service. Just by correlating, confirming with that service that I am a DBS customer. That service provider, because of a commercial relationship with DBS, will provide me a higher value service, and that's from my loyalty with my banking provider. So that's one example. Another one could just be simplifying transactions. Ever today with the drive of e-commerce, a service providers want to minimize basket churn, etc. But even I myself want more seamless experience. So how could I shop with trusted e-commerce stores where I've maybe configured my payment information in advance, and I don't have to share my details multiple times? I myself have been a victim of having my credit card compromised and having to have it reissued. And just those 4 or 5 days waiting for the physical item to turn up before I can then use it digitally is an inconvenience in my life. So I try and minimize share it as much as I can. And then the other one is just, again, once we collect data, how can we provide intelligence back to the customer? So whether it be understanding our customers' interests, be it in stocks or financial products, by either their research history on our platforms or a snapshot of their holdings, how can we tailor the advice and guidance specifically for that customer, which will provide that hyper-personalization experience that actually in the short term will become the expected for the masses and not just available for the few. And so it's about having that correct business strategy.
Yeah, I agree. And it is this nature of where you'll deliver value that makes all of the difference. Yeah. And I think one of the big challenges that creates is that it turns on its head the traditional approaches that we've used towards developing applications and to how we've connected applications. And I suppose fundamental in my perspective around this is that the traditional approaches to developing applications for our customers to use have come from the basis of essentially keeping business and IT separate. Yeah, what we do in business is we define the requirements, we do the analysis, we work out what we need it to say, and then we give those requirements to IT. And that model has actually worked well over the past, but it's worked in a way and at a speed that was appropriate for then. Yeah, and it really reflected the fact that we were building the apps and we were building the interactions that people were having. Yeah. What's changed now is that what we're building needs to be different. And therefore, this traditional approach that actually says, well, business is going to define it and then give the requirements to IT doesn't work. The paradigm doesn't work. And it particularly doesn't work when you have to start connecting and repurposing and reconnecting all of the underlying pieces of data to make it that relevant piece of data that's going to be shared through whatever platform or through whatever experience that you want to underpin. And I think that's when it comes down to speed. And perhaps the joke is to say it's in financial services, it's about speed and security, which means ultimately it's about speed. Yeah, because security is always the place where it slows down. Yeah?
Exactly.
So when you think of it like this, you say, we need to actually change the mindset that sits beneath the way that we work on developing the capabilities that we're going to expose to be consumed within the marketplace. And I think that's something that we can share, Dan, from our background that is relevant. Here, if the traditional approaches don't work, what is that new mindset? How does it have to work?
And I think this is getting into the depth of it, Greg. As you've said, it does need a change of mindset on how we actually approach the delivery. So what are the leading banks doing today? As a single team between Salesforce and MuleSoft, and we've distilled the leading practices from over 5,000 financial services organizations globally. And we've seen a pattern emerge of 3 strategic mindsets that fuel their digital transformation journeys. The first is what we've labeled Renovate. And this is a mindset where we digitize traditional financial services to drive operational efficiencies and better experiences by the product or channel they're intended for. And here, banks are focused on improving transaction experience and related to specific products. And therefore, projects are isolated and address local isolated problems. The next is an Elevate mindset. And this is where organizations are seeking to optimize the experiences by connecting offerings into a modern, unified digital experience to remain competitive in market. It is characterized by a vision to achieve a unified omnichannel experience where self-service is enabled across all silos and channels. And banks here engage with the customer as one team and with a single view of the customer, of their financial needs. They are a customer as one team with a single view, standardizing the business processes centered around the customer rather than the product. An important distinction in this Elevate model as compared to Transcend is that it looks to unify and standardize data, processes and channels across an organization, specifically with the confines of the banking experience and not yet externally outside of the banking. And then alternatively, a Transcend mindset seeks to extend offerings beyond financial services to more general consumer services, to leapfrog the competition and reach customers in a new way through banking as a service. This stage represents a shift from managing financial assets to helping customers achieve their goals, and are focused on delivering services that are upstream or even adjacent to traditional financial services. If we were to use an analogy to crystallize the three mindsets, we would use a lending example. And so for a renovate mindset, it would be digitizing the paper-based loan application to an online form, obviously very efficient. An elevate mindset would be about mining data across the company to eliminate maybe work the customer has to do, maybe not to tell us all the information we already know, but maybe to represent it for confirmation. Or it could be that while they're applying for a loan, the customer is also presented with new relevant banking offerings, such as a home equity line of credit, etc., or insurance. And then if we think about an example for the transcend mindset, this is about enabling customers throughout the whole home buying experience, engaging with the realtor, referring to design consultants, and thinking about that whole experience of buying a home.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, can I just jump in there for you, Dan, and say one of the big things that this represents is the fact that in this space we have lots of different types of entrants. Yeah, some who have existing systems in place, who have the traditional model already working. Then we have others, and they need to go through all of the journey. Yeah, they need to change the mindset and keep changing the mindset. Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And that's it. We find many banks begin with that renovate mindset, but quickly realize they're just digitizing existing services. So if we get into the nooks of it, the shift from the renovate to elevate, this creates significant challenges for banks, since driving this transformation really requires that paradigm shift in how the banks think about delivering technology in service of customer needs. It requires both a change to the operating model, from one centered around providing siloed mindsets, and to building that digital banking platform that unifies the banking experience across lines of business. And in our experience, we find many customers begin with the renovate mindset, but quickly realize that merely digitizing the existing services doesn't adequately meet evolving customer expectations. The renovate model looks at problems through the lens of the traditional organization, which is siloed by product. It doesn't think about a solution that benefits the broader organization or even customer journey. Many of the challenges we see is a connection to those external parties, but you still have the back-end systems that you need to connect to, such as Salesforce for CRM, core banking systems like Terminus, and many mainframe and legacy systems. For institutions to integrate successfully with fintechs and other external partners, institutions must be thoughtful about how they integrate their own data and systems internally first. And as an immature industry, large players have done business the same way for decades, often find change challenging. They must contend with legacy IT systems, inefficient and labor-intensive processes, and often ingrained corporate cultures that are adverse to risk and resistant to change. But how have we seen that being challenged in 2020? However, when it comes to then executing, there is friction internally in multiple dimensions. The traditional organization has grown up aligned to line of business structures and usually represent separate products such as banking, insurance, and wealth management, etc. And as a result, you've just got multiple silos. You've got line of businesses and product silos, you've got organizational silos, channel silos, and just ultimately data silos and fragmented systems, all of which do not allow you to connect anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And the duplication that comes out of that is just extraordinary.
And after duplication, you've got reconciliation, and reconciliation in a bank becomes very expensive, and we know how banking regulations are. But if we start to think about the impact of this, Greg, this has an impact on IT delivery and ultimately the customer experience. The IT landscape is not built for streamlined, automated experiences. The fragmentation of systems results in a lot of data integration that makes it difficult to create these seamless experiences on the web. And as a result, there are a lot of moving parts. There are performance and uptime challenges that require a lot of effort to overcome. And fundamentally, the customer experience is therefore disconnected across all these silos and are filled with arduous manual business processes. Everyone talks about putting the customer at the center, but in reality, we innovate at the product level. Customers are at the center of each and every one of our financial products we want to provide. So what happens? Innovation typically takes place in silos. If you innovate in silos, it creates more fragmentation and poor experience for the customer, leaving the customer to do all the hard work. I had an example shared with me recently. On AIG's website, you'll see a button to request a quote for home insurance. That takes about 8 minutes to complete. Another one for travel insurance, about 3 minutes to complete. Life insurance and pet insurance, similarly again, 3 minutes. In this case, why would the customer, buy the product directly, not go to another provider? The insurer here is missing the bigger picture in engaging with their customer to sell them on their insurance needs, and maybe not asking them the same information multiple times. But what we find as an underlying cause to this is the lengthy development cycles that drive the inability to deliver IT projects just at the speed the business wants. There's people sat in the business being inventive, being innovative, thinking of new ways to bring on streams. And so as a result, customers just don't get the new products, services, and experience because of just how long they take to deliver. The faster we get products from idea to implementation, the more value the organization will realize.
Yeah, totally. And it's that speed or lack of speed that really creates the gaps and the opportunities for other entrants in the market to come in and start to dig into the loyalty or any loyalty that you might have built up with your customers.
And that loyalty is temporal, right? If you don't continue to sustain it, the loyalty will move away and people will find alternative providers.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do we fix these issues? We're not alone in that silos do cause challenges to meet the demands of the current environment. So what if you could take a standardized approach across product lines? And that's really the elevate mindset. In our experience, we're finding lots of customers. Though the goal is clear, businesses are struggling to overcome the traditional fragmented way of operating. To truly stand out in a market where every organization is digital, enterprises must go beyond adopting digital tools, overcome several persistent business challenges, and strive for digital maturity to shape the market. We talked about requiring to change the operating model from one centered around providing siloed products to one centered around building a digital platform that unifies experiences across the business and partners through collaboration and reuse. And this is by far the hardest hurdle to overcome, as it involves more than just technology. It requires a culture and mindset change.
Yep.
In Renovate, companies are thinking merely about digitizing the business process, which is just not sufficient. This will result in limited effect and not great cost efficiencies. If I think about HSBC as an example, we've learned that they had to spend tens of millions of dollars and many months just to absorb Apple Pay when it was released in the UK. And the executives at HSBC challenged IT to say there has to be a better way to absorb this disruption, because this is not the end of the disruption. This is just the beginning. And so for the significant and broad cost impact, organizations need to transform their operating model. And so we move into this elevate and transcend, which is technologically the challenge that persists around data process and organization silos, can be addressed with a digital platform that grants visibility and access to data and processes across an organization. Yet to drive the effective adoption of this platform, organizations must drive a parallel transformation of the mindset and behaviors of the teams on the ground to drive this change. And so in this elevate model, organizations create a culture of inclusion and sharing, as well as a digital platform that enables cross-line of business sharing and collaboration. Lines of business give up the idea of their data and processes and think of them as the customer's data and processes. And in this mindset, lines of business grant visibility and access to data to the broader company because they know it will ultimately serve the customer. The digital platform becomes the place where everyone in the business who has the right to know can see what systems, data, and processes are available across the enterprise and use that to drive standardization, scale, and of course, innovation. And as a result, we've helped customers build a much more composable operating model that enables cost efficiency, agility, and innovation. And once companies overcome the hurdles of the operating model transformation, the transition from evolved to transcend is much easier with far greater returns. And how, you may say? The same underlying digital platform that anchors the transition from Renovate to Elevate can be leveraged to surface data and assets to external channels and partners. A service one company creates to automate a process can be accessed and consumed by anyone, anytime, anywhere. Similarly, anyone can develop an automated service internally and then offer it externally and drive new business opportunities. And here, the digital platform becomes the open banking platform, where a marketplace of internal and external contributors and consumers are all connected to serve the end customer. Automated processes that were once integral and internal to a single line of business throughput can be leveraged across an entire company, across multiple enterprises, and even across multiple industries, disrupting the business ecosystem everywhere. And so we talked about these customer experiences. But how do we do that? So MuleSoft enables this with a fundamental different approach to connecting systems by creating reuse. But what do I mean by it? MuleSoft takes the walls of the silos out, places one platform across the entire organization so that there is visibility into the data and core systems across the organization. It provides a single source of truth for customer information, banking information, and transaction history, as well as core system functionality. And from a data perspective, you're able to find account information that is housed in multiple systems in one single endpoint. MuleSoft is used to unlock the data from your system of record, and it changes the approach to integration from, I want to move and pass this data from system A to system B, to I want to unlock the data of system A. I want to enable others to discover the data of system A, and I also want to make it accessible for system B. You can also grant access to this data to the lines of business. We can then package up those services in a different way to create their own views of data and orchestration processes altogether. And so a domain-driven view of data and processes can also be packaged up into discrete services that are built once and reused across the channels to unify experiences for an organization. In this transcend mindset, a service one company creates to automate a process can be accessed and consumed by anyone, anytime, anywhere. And conversely, someone can develop an automated service internally and then offer it externally and drive new business opportunity. So what does this mean for smaller banks and fintechs? It actually means it drives an economies of scale. So with a service-based platform, even a startup company can access the same resources and same global audiences as the largest multinational enterprises. And through APIs and integration platforms, organizations can enable all agents across industries to drive service standards at unprecedented scales. Businesses who use APIs as part of their digital platform see a strong improvement in business performance. According to an MIT and Boston University economist, Marshall Van Ashstein, economic evidence shows the organizations that adopt APIs are actually showing a 2 to 10% gain in market capitalization. That's in addition to organizations who use APIs that reduce internal lower maintenance costs, more innovation, and greater customer satisfaction.
And Dan, there, I think that one of the points to take away from all of this is that when you start exposing capabilities, you start putting capabilities in a place that they can be built upon, consumed within different new applications built by others. Yeah. So in other words, opening yourself up to that whole ecosystem. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is that it's almost impossible to guess where your capabilities are going to be used. Yeah. If we could imagine what the next killer engagement application, and by that I mean the new Facebook, the new Twitter, if we could imagine what that would be, yeah, we would all be in a really fantastic position. But the truth is we don't know. And I think that that's the big shift, that when we talk about the need for this new mindset, it is to fit into a world that says, actually, we want to make our capabilities available for people to consume, for people to build upon, to take and incorporate into their experiences, because we actually know that we can't compete in that sense with those platforms that have been developing attention-grabbing, attention-holding techniques for years and years now. Yeah, so and we're not going to try and compete with them. In fact, the much smarter way is to say, how do we incorporate our capabilities so that they can become ubiquitous, so that they can be consumed all over the place?
And the flip side to that, Greg, is this is why open banking is very attractive to the regulator. These well-established, well-trusted, stable organizations underpin the financial sector of Singapore and wider in Asia. So if they start to unlock some of their core capabilities so that innovation can be driven and leveraged by other organizations, there's still that stability in the financial system for Singapore. And obviously that's great for many reasons. It just ensures that ongoing stability, which is one of Singapore's greatest assets.
Absolutely.
So,
from a reputation perspective throughout the region, that's incredibly powerful to be able to show the stability in Singapore, the lessons learned that we have as we move forward with these new licenses, and then throughout the region, as is always the way, that other parts of the region look to the great work that gets done here to adopt and follow some of the trends and learnings from here.
That's it. And Greg, this bends us all the way back to the beginning and to this key question. We need to challenge it, the audience today and the people me and you speak to frequently. Are you going to be that leader, or are you going to be the follower when it comes to the digital banking revolution and all the opportunity that represents?
Yeah, and look, if I come up with my fundamental argument at all of that is that the leaders bring business and IT closer together. Yeah, those organizations who understand the need for business and IT to come together do so with three fundamental pieces as well. And that is, first of all, it's the mindset. That's what we've been talking about. And I think at this level, this is perhaps the first and most important thing to realize, is that the mindset needs to shift. And that then needs to be driven across the organization. What that then results in is that the capabilities that you start to build, the capabilities that you start to expose and make available to that ecosystem, that then reflects the core capabilities, the core value that you want to bring to your target customers. And of course, what has to sit underneath all of that is the fact that you need technology to actually move forward with you. There's been too much in the past where we've tried to rebadge and repurpose technology that was built for working a completely different way. And I think that's what fundamentally has a role to play in not only reflecting the new mindset, reflecting the new capabilities, is this technology platform that needs to be there to support you in creating assets at speed, with security, and in a way that encapsulates rather than requires you to go off and build multiple technical layers before you can actually get anything exposed out the door.
100%.
So with that, I can then share perhaps in a little bit of conclusion that thankfully we at MuleSoft are very grateful for the opportunity to have been able to help a number of organizations within financial services already make this journey. And one of the things that we were talking about before, and you're talking about before, Dan, when you talk about the renovate, elevate and transcend mindset shifts, is that it reflects the different places that entrants into the market are coming from. Some have established business models, some have established banks, some have that. And so we have the experience of working with people like Bank of America, where we've helped them take their core banking, take their lending environment and help them modernize that. And that goes through all the way through to people, all the way through to fintechs and startups, but also for people like HSBC who wanted to completely leapfrog that generation of doing it incrementally and said, we want to take what we've got, repurpose that into consumable and exposable services, and then start to build from there. So I suppose that the key thing to take away from this is that there will be lots and lots of different variations as to what this change in mindset really means and how the technology is going to help you achieve what you need to achieve. But understand that wherever you come from, where you have to get to is a place where your capabilities are exposed easily and consumed easily and done with the appropriate consideration of the regulation and the securities, the security that comes in our market. And so with that, what's next, because I realize that we're just about at time. Of course, both Dan and I are available to be connected with. We'd like to thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that you found the content valuable. We'd love to hear from you and keep this discussion going, because we know that this is a discussion and this is an evolving discussion. So please connect with us on LinkedIn, and those details are there on the screen for you. And as a next step, I'd like to invite you to download our latest report that launched just a few days ago. We surveyed nearly 2,000 business users globally, including Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong. And this report explores the role of the line of business employees in driving innovation and the need to empower them to unlock data. So perhaps to your point, Dan, where you're talking about taking innovation away from a product level and really starting to include it across the organization, this is really key to how that to understanding that. And the research on that point shows that only 37% of organizations definitively have the skills and technology to keep pace with digital projects. And the vast majority, 82% I think was the number, of line of business employees believe they need quick and easy access to data and IT capabilities to do their jobs effectively and remain competitive and productive. I think they're fantastic takeaways from the report. It's all in that business IT innovation. As I said, our focus is really here about bringing business and IT closer together. So with that, Dan, I'm going to thank you very, very much for all of your input and your time with us today, and thank everybody for taking the time to be with us and listen to us talk through these topics today. We hope it's been of value to you. We thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the festival and all of these other events that are going along with the festival. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.